what you want, when you want it, where you want it. This is The Mesh.
Foot Candle Films. Film news and reviews from two guys who really like movies.
This episode is brought to you by the Foot Candle Film Society. For a schedule of upcoming screenings and membership information, visit the Society's website at www.footcandle.org.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Foot Candle Films here on the Mesh.tv podcast network. My name is Alan Jackson. With me, Chris Fry. We're both with the Foot Candle Film Society and the annual Foot Candle Film Festival. And today we are host of the Foot Candle Films podcast. So, Chris, how are you doing today?
I am doing well. Festival season is quickly approaching. We've been preparing for it for a while, obviously, but it's ramping up. So it's an exciting time for sure.
Yes, it is an exciting time, and we'll probably talk about that a little bit more later in the show. Kind of or talk a little bit more about what's coming up with the festival, and kind of help you guys understand that. But we have pressing matters to get to, Chris. We have important things to talk about. We have a review of a film we're going to make today, which is the film Longlegs. We'll be reviewing here shortly. That's the latest film from writer-director Oz Perkins and starring Micah Monroe and Nicolas Cage. Then we'll be moving on to a couple of news items. Well, actually just one news item, but then I've got two trailers to share with you, Chris. I imagine you've seen both these trailers, or maybe I'm assuming you have, because I know most of the internet has seen both of these in the last week. I'm assuming you probably have too. But we're still going to talk about them because, Chris, we haven't talked about any real big, popular, big budget movies in a while. We've been a little low budget, been a little smaller films with our reviews and critiques lately, which is great.
Sure.
But got to dip back into the big budget tentpole movies just a bit. So I do have two trailers to share for some big movies coming up soon. And then I think we're going to end the show with another one of Chris Fry's patented recommendations for us. Films to watch on a hot summer day when you don't want to be outside.
Right.
And you just want to curl up with something inside, nice air conditioning. That's what we're going to give as another recommendation from Chris at the end of the show. But Chris, as I mentioned, first thing we'll be doing is jumping into our review of Longlegs. So are you ready to do this?
Let's go.
All right, here we go.
Are you still saying your prayers?
Writer-director Oz Perkins' latest film follows FBI agent Lee Harker, played by Micah Monroe, as she and fellow agent Carter, played by Blair Underwood, uncover a series of clues that must be solved to end the killing spree of a serial killer who calls himself Longlegs, played by Nicolas Cage. The film's successful guerrilla marketing campaign has been likened to that of another indie horror film, The Blair Witch Project. Moviegoers and film critics have been referring to the actual film itself as the best serial killer horror film since Silence of the Lambs. In a rare state of affairs, I believe neither of us had seen the actual trailer for the film prior to walking into the theater. Trailers, which we've talked about on the show, can often be the culprit of unfair expectations of a film. Considering the hype that did surround this film, how did it affect your viewing of the film, Alan? And what was your experience of the film overall?
Well, it's true that I did not see any of the real marketing of this film.
Oh, so you didn't see any of the marketing either? Not the trailer, but not really the marketing either?
Not really. I saw were people's reactions online.
Okay.
Like quick little blurbs. Like you mentioned, the best serial killer movie since Silence of the Lambs, one of the scariest movies of the year, blah, blah, blah. And I was also just fascinated that it's writer-director Oswald Perkins, is Anthony Perkins' son.
Gotcha.
He of the original Psycho film. That to me got me kind of curious. And, look, I bought into the hype. I heard the hype online. I'm like, all right, maybe this is something to go see. I love Silence of the Lambs. Anytime you tell me this is a film that's going to harken back to that or have any kind of reverence to that film, I'm going to give it a shot more than likely.
Sure.
And the word coming out, the buzz was pretty positive. I have this to say, Longlegs. I know Silence of the Lambs. You, sir, are no Silence of the Lambs. I did not like this movie, and I can't tell if I'm in the minority or majority because the more I read online from people, I think there's more level minds are kind of coming out about this film. I don't know where I fall. I don't really care where I fall with the rest of the public.
Sure.
I'm saying the film didn't work for me. I've got various reasons why.
Okay.
I will say from a positive side, you gave a little bit, the very, very short synopsis of the plot. The film looks really good. And I think they have a good style in mind of how they were wanting to make this film. And I think the film atmospherically is really interesting to look at. That's about where it stopped for me. So, Chris, I'm going to kick it over to you and let you tell me what you thought of Longlegs, and we'll see where our conversation goes from there.
So, the reason I kind of kicked off, I had not seen the trailer, but I'd seen a lot of posters and a lot of marketing material that we get from the studios because they were movie critics and they just send these little blurbs. And it made me, it did raise my expectations of the film. It made me think that it was going to be kind of a combination of Zodiac because there was a lot of like notes and like weird cipher type stuff. There was that. And then just the fact that it was a serial killer type thing. It was like, Silence of the Lambs did kind of hit my mind. So I thought it was going to kind of be a combination of just, not knowing it was going to be a combination of the two. So expectations did hurt my feeling of the overall film. Because, and it's unfair because I don't think this film had the budget, obviously, of a Silence of the Lambs. Or basically the star power, just the budget. Yeah, just basically the budget. I did think the marketing for it was creative. Still haven't seen the trailer. But like you said, I admire the style of the film, how it looked, some of the uses of music like T-Rex. They use T-Rex and they do some things with that. The acting, Micah Monroe, I thought she did a good job. I originally became aware of her with It Follows and had actually kind of forgotten about her because I think they are planning on doing a sequel of that movie, but that hasn't happened yet. So I'd kind of forgotten about her, and then seeing her in this, I was like, oh, okay, yes, I remember her. She was kind of a former scream queen. It's kind of hard to say, or had kind of gotten that title because of It Follows. So. But I think, without getting into spoilers, the mechanics of the film, or the idea of the film, if you were to spoil it and say, okay, here's what happens, and you tell the story, you're like, okay, that sounds like that could be interesting. But the actual way that it was put on screen, I guess the overall plot seems like it would be very fascinating. But then when it's put on screen, the mechanics of how everything ends up working out, I just couldn't get on board with it. So like if you divide the film up into thirds, the first two, okay. But then that last third, I was like, I couldn't make the leap that the film wanted me to make. And I think because
fair.
Maybe they tease a little bit of, and I can reveal this because this is in the very opening bit, that Lee Harker may have a little bit of, precognition, psychic ability, precognition stuff. So, and then that's just kind of dropped. Mm-hmm. If that had been heightened a little bit, then that may have helped me buy some of the things that happened towards the end of the film a little bit more. Yep. But because it seemed pretty grounded, grounded as a film like Zodiac, which is, based on true events that happened, and Silence of the Lambs, which is completely fiction. But both of those are like more grounded, gritty, realistic type films. And because of that kind of, I found myself not knowing exactly what kind of movie I was watching, but not in a good way.
No, I love you.
So ultimately, I was let down. I will say though, you commented a little bit on style, and I've mentioned it. The opening of the film starts in a 4:3 or a weird screen ratio. Maybe it's actually a square ratio, so it's actually like that was effective, and usually, and they hold full reveal of Mr. Longlegs for a while, but he's in that opening scene.
Yeah, which
and the way that's shot
effective.
and the way that, very effective. He actually gives a little bit of but good and creepy explanation of the character name Longlegs.
Mm-hmm.
And, some stuff because, effective, very effective. And actually, I found myself thinking, okay, are we going to see this whole film in this ratio? And once the film gets going, it expands out, and you hear some of the music. It stretches to the familiar 16 by 9. So all of that, great. But then, like I said, it just slowly started to kind of unravel for me.
Here's the approach I see with Longlegs is I think there was some really solid ideas.
I would agree
That they were very committed to wanting to get on film. And I think for the most part, those moments and those scenes, those images worked. Then it's almost like they felt like, well, now we've got to actually have a story to kind of fill in these moments and kind of make these moments work. And that's where I felt like it struggled. I'm with you. I think by 2/3 into this movie, it had kind of lost me.
Okay.
I was eagerly wanting to stay on board the first half of the film. I felt like there was enough there to keep me on board. Then I realized, no, there's not actually. Actually, it's lost me. And I think by the end of this film, it started out as one type of endeavor of a film. By the end, with its premise, and what you realize is ultimately the kind of the plot and the device that's going on here, it kind of turned into a very, what we see nowadays, these run-of-the-mill horror films, kind of the new generation of horror films. Like I don't want to give away, like the film we even ragged about, like the Afraid, the AI house. It kind of had a conceit, and it had this kind of a little outlandish, a little over-the-top conceit.
Right.
And that's now what we realize the film is building us to.
This is what you're actually selling us.
Yeah.
This is what's
and
actually,
once I realized that, I'm like, oh, man, that was disappointing because you set it up as a film that I was starting to get invested in, and then you let me in on what exactly is the deal with this film, and I'm like, okay, well, if that's really what the deal is, then you lost me.
Right.
I mean, it should have started with that. Maybe it could have started with the lead characters, that idea of the psychic ability being a little bit more ingrained, like you said, and be a part of the plot going forward. And the fact that it wasn't was very jarring the whole movie to me. I'm like, why? I don't understand. You brought this up in the first scene, but then
dropped it.
nothing's happened with it.
Yeah.
There's no reason for it. I
spent a whole sequence of her being tested for said psychic ability as well.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I'm torn on Micah Monroe's performance.
Really?
It did not grab me as much. I personally felt like it was okay, you have to act as a very distant, very constantly tormented individual. And that's basically just, okay, fine. That's the role and I'm going to play it. And I didn't feel like there was a lot more to it than that. So I had a really hard time connecting with her. I mean, granted, I know that's part of her character is that she's not able to connect with people very easily. But it just made it tough from the viewer. I didn't see her role working as well. I will say the one acting role I did like was Blair Underwood as her boss. I thought he was really good.
I thought he was good.
I thought he was probably the best performance in the film. So as we're talking performances, Chris, we gotta open the cage, and we gotta talk about
nice
Nick Cage a little bit.
Okay,
right?
before we do, I want to jump back and because I want to jump back and talk. I praise Micah Monroe. I agree with Blair Underwood, but you're a little not as sure as Micah Monroe. I will say, in the beginning of the film, her kind of wooden performance, let's say, or her kind of standoff, isolated like nature, wasn't working for me. But considering where the film goes, then it actually worked a little bit better for me. I was like, okay, that actually explains away a little bit of her.
It gave some explanation.
So it ended up being satisfying. But in the beginning, I did have a little bit of reservation. But as the film progressed and things like, I was okay. Okay, so we've gotten the key, put the key in the lock. We've opened the cage, Mr. Cage. Yeah. I like Nicolas Cage as an actor. I think he can be fun. Yes, sometimes he goes over the top and everything. Unfortunately, I like the opening scene. I think he does a good job of, in that thing. But then other than that, I feel like not that it's not bad, but there's just not a lot there. It's kind of like if you imagine, okay, Nicolas Cage is going to play a serial killer who's kind of like crazy, and you'd be like, okay, and then the image that's in the film, yeah, that's pretty much what you get. But it's almost like, and I guess he knows this, he was an executive producer on the film, kind of mocking in a way, which is fine, but it wasn't entertaining to me.
It took me, and I think honestly, it took a lot of the audience out of the film as well. So there was a lot more giggles and laughs.
Got you.
During his performance than there was any sense of fear, which is why I really wish it had been somebody besides Nicholas. I really wanted this to be an unknown actor playing that role. Well, that would have been effective.
Okay.
But the whole time, it's Nicolas Cage. You see it in his performance, and it felt like to me, it was like, okay, Nick Cage, we need you to be the Joker, like a really demented Joker. So,
right.
And he's a comic book guy, so he probably excelled in that. So that was kind of the role he took. And it just became this very caricaturish, over-the-top performance when it didn't need it. Yes, this is an over-the-top character. I get that. But it's just adding the Nicolas Cage side of it behind it all. Just really, to me, that's where the film started breaking down for me. I do agree. The opening scene, the very first time we meet him, was great. And I like the fact that he was shrouded for about half the film, which was good too. Sometimes in some very creative ways where we didn't really get a clear view. Once we got a clear view of him and there's like extended dialogue scenes with him, it's like, okay, yeah, this isn't working. This is just not, this is not effective anymore.
Yeah.
It's no longer scary, or it's no longer, the kind of frightening depiction we're looking for. This has become a little more over the top and a little more sensationalized, and it just wasn't a good fit. I don't think it was a good fit for him, for his performance here. So,
yeah, I feel like, okay, if you look at, I think we alluded to maybe with the review of Maxine how, or maybe if we didn't, we'll address it briefly here. Neon, which is the studio that has released Longlegs, it seems like they are thinking about, A24 had a very successful run of horror films. You had The Witch, you had Hereditary, you had Midsommar. They've kind of built kind of like a brand in a way. And then with like the Maxine or the trilogy, the Ty West trilogy. So Neon, now they have Longlegs, and they have. It seems like maybe they're like, okay, well, and I think they're responsible for Cuckoo, which is a trailer we have played in a previous show. So I think, and to me, I think that was part of the problem also. I talked about my mindset going in. I was like, okay, this is Neon. I like them as like, I like A24 as a studio that releases films. And I have also enjoyed Blumhouse joints such as Megan. They were fun, but they don't, you kind of know, okay, it's a horror film, but it's not taking itself too seriously. It's kind of a concept that they often do have like a lot of humor in them. And so I think my mode in this film was I went in expecting an A24 type film, and the end gave me a very Blumhouse type feel. And that in my brain was like a clash that was not working. Does that make sense?
No, absolutely. Okay. It's a clash that didn't work, added to a plot that I think story and plot that seemed very cobbled together and not very clearly told.
It's like two different films in a way.
Little bit, yeah. And then you add in that, I think, misguided performance by Nick Cage. It's like, yeah, just as a whole, the film just didn't work. I mean, the story and the plot, I'm still trying to kind of get my head around a little bit of exactly what was happening. I mean, I think I've got it.
Sure.
But the fact that I'm still having to question it, afterwards, I'm not questioning it from like I'm trying to interpret it. I'm trying to truly understand it. Like, right. I really am trying to understand the mechanics of what was happening here, because we have a character who, the Longlegs character, we've got this use of, I'm just going to leave it as these kind of toys. We're going to keep it kind of broad, just from not to give too much away. Again, I haven't seen the trailer. I don't know what else revealed in there. I have no idea. But the use of these toys, and then what those toys kind of have to do with the family they go to. Again, I'm still trying to think about it, and like, I don't know if I really got it, but
sure,
that's problematic. Again, I can overlook sometimes I can overlook a lack of a cohesive story or some plot beats that don't work. If the acting is really good and the environment, the atmosphere, and kind of the way it's filmed is really good, I'm very forgiving. This one just had enough issues on all of those fronts. The only thing that worked was the shooting, the atmospheric side of the film. It did have a good look. I found myself, a lot of the shots were shot, medium and wide angles. So it's like you walk into a space and it's like a big open space. And it's like you keep feeling like something's going to be there. And sometimes it is, sometimes it's not. It's like, and that worked. So I like that. I like the way it was shot and I like the way it was presented to me. I just don't feel like there was the story or in some cases the acting to kind of support. And then there's that whole tone, that shift that really happened. All that just made for kind of a little bit of a mess of a movie for me. And I'm not even going to say it's a disappointment because I didn't go into this thinking, oh my gosh, I'm going to love this movie and I'm walk away disappointed. I walked in out of curiosity and I came out deflated, just that, okay, this is not at all what it could have been, should have been, or is being promoted as right now. So.
Yeah, it sounds like we are on the same page.
So the internet is wrong.
Except that I think I did walk in with, unfortunately, raised expectations. You said you walked in just curious, and I walked in curious, but with raised expectations. So I may have been let down a little more than you were, but yeah.
Yeah, it was just it was tough. It was tough. And I try to always gauge audience reactions. Sure. I like letting people know as we talk about the films. I mean, yes, we're just you and I, two people. I mean, there's other people out there have different tastes and different things that work for them in film. So I always like to listen to the audience and say,
sure.
Right,
sure.
Are they getting it? Because again, maybe I'm just the one who doesn't. Maybe I'm the one who's finding the faults, but the rest of the world's loving it. And I got to say, I mean, I was in a pretty crowded theater. This was a Sunday night, 7:30 show. It was pretty full.
Okay.
And a lot of people on their phones during the film. A lot of laughing during Nicolas Cage's performances. Didn't really hear a lot of any kind of reaction towards the end. Yeah, I don't think it quite hit with the audiences the way
Gotcha.
Some of this early buzz was making it out like it was going to. So.
Sure. And I will say, I think I've seen, early it was all positive buzz. I guess before the film's release, a bunch of people that had seen it at festivals or something, they were all like, oh, saying a lot of the taglines, best serial killer horror film in a long time or the scariest movie of the year. Mm-hmm. And then audience started to see it, and I saw a lot of blowback of them saying oh, this film's not scary at all. It's just terrible. This isn't even horror. And then it was this fight between oh, you just don't see a lot of horror film. You don't know what's scary. And there's kind of this back and forth about whether it's scary. I mean, to me, that's actually not, I go to a film to see a good film, regardless. Now, if it's billed as a horror movie and doesn't end up scaring me, that's not going to make me not like the film. Right, no. So it had nothing to do with that.
A non-scary horror movie can still be a good movie.
Yeah, absolutely. So it was just the mechanics of the film, like you and I've discussed, not the plot, but the mechanics or the way things were done that kind of threw me off. Had nothing to do with whether or not I was scared or not. So
no, same here. Again, I didn't come out of this saying, oh, I wasn't scared, so it was a bad movie. No, it's not that. I mean, honestly, right. I'm kind of actually thankful I didn't get scared as much because I can be a scaredy cat when it comes to these movies. So I did not find it to be as scary as a lot of the promotion has led it up to be, for sure. And I'm pretty weak when it comes to these horror films. So yes, I would be the first to tell you if I found myself scared. There were a couple moments that were more frightening. I wish that they weren't based on a little bit of jump scares. I mean,
I was going to say something, but then I backed off saying it. Let's jump scares. Yeah. We go see lots of different types of films for the show. We will go see horror movies. It's not a genre that I seek out or that I'm a big fan of, but something that I actually hold against, which is stupid because that's what they're made for. Horror movies are jump scares because I feel like it's just it's just a cheap shot.
Cheap and easy.
Now, that being said, there is one in the opening sequence that I think works.
And but it's because it's not cheap. There's a purpose to it. It's you as an audience don't know if you're going to see what you think you're going to see or not. And then when you do, it's jarring. It's a shock. And it it builds up what we're anticipating for the rest of the movie. So it was perfect.
And I feel like the amount of jump scares too can be a thing, because like if that's how you are intending to make the movie scary, is just by, all of a sudden a quick cut and a music stinger. It's like, okay, does it work for me? Yeah, because I'm kind of a scaredy cat like you. So it'll make me jump, but then it's like I jump and I immediately roll my eyes. I'm like, okay.
Well, here's the worst kind of jump scares. And unfortunately, Longlegs did have a couple of these in there.
Okay.
Where it's not even anything scary. It's just, let's be as quiet as possible, and then let's have a random noise happen as loud as possible to freak people out.
That, of course, is jarring. Yeah.
It is jarring, but it had nothing to do with one was, there was a knock on the door, but at one point that like shook everybody in the audience. That was like the biggest scare outside of the opening sequence.
Okay.
That was like the biggest scare in the movie for everybody, was when the door, somebody beat on the door and it's like, shook everybody. There was another time where the main character, there's a cut to her like opening a book or something like that, and she slams her hand down on something with it, and it was like a loud noise and everybody jumped. I'm like, all right, you know what you're doing as a filmmaker. You're doing this intentionally because you're trying to jolt people around. But have the rest of the film's scares justify those couple of fake scare moments, and it didn't. So it's like, it just seems very cheap. I
would agree.
Yeah. So I'm not a fan of the jump scares unless they are done extremely well and with intent and purpose.
Right.
And I do feel like the opening scene did. I liked it. Actually, I was terribly excited for the movie once that opening sequence happened. I'm like, okay, I'm on board. This is good.
Same way.
And just the style of it, the way the opening credits came up and all that. I'm in the T-Rex song playing. I'm like, yes, this is great. And then it just did not fulfill after that. So, okay. All right. Sounds like we're on the same page.
Yeah.
Disappointed, or at least not willing to go along with what some of the early buzz was on this film. That is the film Longlegs. Again, we're both saying you can pass on it. I don't think you miss anything in it.
Unless, unlike Alan and I, you are big horror fans, then I think you'll find it entertaining to go see with a crowd, because, and maybe you are like a big fan of jump scares. Like, some people like roller coasters because it makes them afraid. Some people like horror movies for the same reason. I wouldn't say, I think it depends on, I guess if you're kind of a horror movie snob, which I'll call myself that.
Yeah.
Then maybe this isn't for you. But
I don't know, man. I'd have a hard time even saying for somebody who is a good aficionado of horror films.
Okay.
I just don't know if there's enough here to.
Well, and I would say if you're more of a Blumhouse horror movie fan, then you may be more on board with this. If you're more of an A24, maybe not.
If you're a Blumhouse horror fan, but you're curious about A24 films and thought, maybe I want to tiptoe into that world a little bit. Okay, that's where you can go with this. Gives you just enough of that, but by the end of the day, don't worry. It's still going to be a film that you're going to want to see as a fan of these more routine horror films. So, yeah. Okay, that's Longlegs. All right, well, my son went with me to see it, and he also felt very. He in a quote, he said this was it seemed like a film that it was that was made by a cinematographer for a cinematographer, but for nobody else. It's like, in other words, the look of it was really good, but there wasn't anything to support that. And I'm like, I can see that. That's good. Okay, let's move on. We do have a couple of trailers and a news item to share, but let's take a quick break, and then when we come back, we will hit those as well as Chris Fry's recommendation for the episode. Stay tuned. You're listening to Foot Candle Films here on the Mesh.tv podcast network.
This podcast is sponsored by Jackson Creative, a custom communication agency located in downtown Hickory, North Carolina, specializing in online content creation. To learn more, visit thejacksoncreative.com. Jackson Creative, we tell your story.
Hello, welcome back to Foot Candle Films here on the Mesh.tv podcast network. Chris and I had our review of the film Longlegs in the first part of the show. Let's go ahead and move on into future-looking projects and news and discussions. Chris, honestly, look, I like reviewing movies, but I think I actually enjoy more talking about movies that are to come.
Okay.
Because there's that promise of hope. There's like things can all be good.
Sure.
And then it's like, you get to where they actually get released, and it's a 50-50 crapshoot whether they turn out good or not. So.
No, nobody sets out to make a bad movie.
Exactly.
At least
and
I don't think
all
so.
the people involved in the production of any film, none of them sit around saying, yeah, let's really tank this movie. I really want to make something bad that just audiences don't like. No, there's
Just to
never a
irritate
desire.
people. Yeah.
So this is us talking about some of these early glimpses of films that could be really good in the future. Let me start off with a news item. I'm just going to kind of read through this, and you can kind of give me your feedback and thoughts on it. If I had to ask you what actor right now, Chris, would you say is probably for young actors that's kind of riding high right now, has been in a lot of projects, a lot of interesting projects. Who is that young actor right now? I would just give you a hint. He was. I was
going to say Glenn Powell, but
that's a good one. That's a good one. Not
But not
it's
the one you're
Glenn
thinking
Powell,
of.
but
Okay.
close.
okay.
Close. He was the lead in a film we reviewed maybe 3 weeks ago. He's also been in a
Josh O'Connor.
Nope.
Okay.
He was a lead in a musical biopic about a famous musician.
Austin Butler.
Austin Butler.
Okay.
There we go. Yes, that's it. He of the Bike Riders.
Yes.
Dune Part 2. Of
Yeah.
course, Elvis a
Elvis,
couple years
sure.
ago. Well, he is going to be in a new project
Okay.
that in itself is not surprising. Austin Butler is going to be in a lot of projects for a while.
Sure. Sure.
And also joining him is Zoe Kravitz, who's also someone I expect to be in a lot of projects going forward. She's kind of
And she's been around a while.
she's been around for a while, but she's kind of
ramping up.
She's
Yeah.
ramping up. I think
Sure.
with her role in the Batman, then she had her movie Kimmy.
Yeah.
She starred in.
Right.
She's also just directed a film that's getting ready to come out here pretty soon. I'm trying to remember the name of that film. Blink Twice is the one that she's directing with Channing Tatum in it. So they're both kind of on the rise actor-wise. All right. So what director would we like to see them work with on a new project? How about Darren Aronofsky? All right,
I haven't heard from him in a while.
I know. Zoe Kravitz and Austin Butler are going to be in Darren Aronofsky's movie called Caught Stealing. The film is based on the book of the same name by Charlie Houston, who wrote the script. The story, and this is all from the Hollywood Reporter reporting this from their website. The story follows Hank Thompson, a burned out former baseball player who's unwittingly plunged into a wild fight for survival in the downtown criminal underworld of 1990s New York City.
Okay. All I ask to get me excited about this film is to have a trailer set to Jane's Addiction's Been Caught Stealing, and then we're set. So consider that, Mr. Aronofsky, if you want to get
It's a
me
little
excited.
on the nose, right? I mean,
Hey, that's okay.
I mean, it's cool.
I like the song.
Okay.
So,
All right. And that song hasn't really been used in a trailer before. So,
Not to my knowledge
okay.
now.
Not aware of when it would be. Aronofsky, as you recall, last film we saw him do was The Whale from a couple years ago.
I saw Postcards from Earth
yeah.
or
You
whatever.
saw
yeah,
the
Out of the Sphere.
Sphere,
But yes, which was very odd. And so
But as
yeah,
far as
it's
like
been a
a
while.
theatrical
Sure.
feature film,
Right.
it was The Whale
The
was
Whale.
the last one for him. So that sounds interesting. It's going to be his Protozoa Pictures is going to be producing the film. So yeah, I think it's going to be
2025 release.
It doesn't have a date yet.
Okay.
I think it's just ramping up.
Got you.
Aronofsky was quoted in the same Hollywood Reporter article saying, quote, "I'm excited to be teaming up with my old friends at Sony Pictures to bring Charlie's adrenaline-soaked roller coaster ride to life."
Okay.
All right. So
Name of the film again?
Caught Stealing.
Caught Stealing.
Yeah. By Charlie Houston is the author of the book and also wrote the script for the film.
So a novel, not like a true story, we think.
I'm not familiar with Hank Thompson as a burned out former baseball player, so I'm assuming
yeah.
that it is a made up fictional story.
Sure.
But look, Aronofsky, I'm extremely curious about. Although I wasn't the biggest fan of The Whale, I had some issues with that film. Mother, Black Swan, The Wrestler.
His stuff is always worth seeing,
It's
whether or
worth
not
seeing.
you're,
It's a good way. That's a perfect way to say it. It is worth seeing.
regardless
Whether
of where you fall on it. It's like,
And his
yeah.
films are divisive. I've had some films that I hated, that he's done, and I've had some that I've loved, but I've always been intrigued by them. So that's at least we have that going on.
Sure.
Okay. So that is coming up soon. I would say probably 2025.
Sure,
Maybe late
sounds like a safe
2025.
bet.
We'll see. Okay, Chris, we've talked, Longlegs was a fairly low budget production, like $10 million. I think it cost to produce that. It's already made that up. It made like $25 million this weekend. So I assume Caught Stealing is not going to be a super high budget production because that doesn't sound like an Aronofsky thing, except he did do The Fountain and he did Noah, which were big budget. But anyway,
Right.
all that to say, I feel like we've been talking little smaller films. We did Maxine last week. We've had a few weeks of just some lower, smaller films, not with these giant six-figure or triple-digit million budget amounts.
Sure.
So let's change that.
Okay.
Let me give you 2 trailers.
Okay.
And yes, these are big movies coming out later this year. Or actually, one will be later this year, one will be early next year.
Okay.
What...
You've claimed
Did
that you
you-
think I've probably seen both or at least one. So I'm curious what they are. 'Cause
if you haven't seen them, I'm excited to show them to
Okay.
you. But I got to imagine these have been all over the internet for last week, and this one in particular, the first one, has actually kind of gotten a lot of derision from people.
I haven't seen it, and I'm super excited.
Gladiator 2.
Electric Boogaloo, Gladiator 2 Electric. Yeah, I have not seen the trailer. I've
We're gonna
heard
watch
people
the
are
trailer
down
for
on
it.
Mr. Denzel. I'm like, what's happening?
We're going to watch the trailer. Gladiator.
Okay.
Look, I'll go ahead and say it up front. I love the original Gladiator. I think it's great. I think it's one of Ridley Scott's best films outside of his classics. I mean, obviously Alien and Blade Runner and all that. But I think in the more modern era, I think it's great. I think it's so good. I'm always a fan of that film.
I like it. I liked it when it came out. I think I have only seen it once.
Okay.
So, but I liked it. So
Yeah. No, I like it quite a bit. But I was also very dubious when I heard they're going to make Gladiator 2.
let's get Russell Crowe on the show and ask him about his role in Gladiator 2.
Well, the way we get Russell Crowe on the show is we say, look, we have a role for a priest who's going to be involved in an exorcism in some way. We need you here to do that. I think he will show up at our doorstep ready to go.
to talk about that, and then we can talk about because apparently
By
he's
the
been
way-
asked about it several times. He's like very cranky,
Dismissive.
Yeah.
Well, the fact that there was really no way for him to be in Gladiator.
Oh, he could be a
2.
ghost. Come on.
Yeah, but all right.
Yeah.
Gladiator 2. It is Ridley Scott directing it, which again, when I heard that, I'm like, okay, all right, maybe you got me. And then I heard Paul Mescal was going to
Yeah.
be the lead. I'm like, all right, you got kind of a talented actor that's, I think, got something to prove. I'm like, Pedro Pascal got put in this film, which I like
Okay.
Pedro Pascal. I like Denzel Washington.
I do
He's
too.
in the film as well.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, maybe we got something here. I don't think this trailer is great.
Oh,
I may join the echoes of the fanboys online complaining about it, but let me leave it to you.
I
and
cannot wait to see
if
this.
you feel the same way about it I did after
Okay.
watching this. Maybe you won't.
I remember that day. I never forgot it. That a slave could take revenge against an emperor.
Where were you born?
I don't know. I never knew a mother nor a father.
You will be my instrument.
Who are you?
Did you hear that crowd? The greatest temple Rome ever built. The Colosseum. Because this is what they believe in. Power.
So that is the trailer for Gladiator 2.
to quote one Alan Jackson, no bueno. Yeah, I like Ridley Scott.
And again, I am talking about the
Just
trailer.
the trailer.
Again,
No.
I don't know how the film's going to
I feel like trailer's too long. Trailer reveals too much.
Trailer hits too many of the exact same beats that the original movie did.
Right.
It's like, remember when this happened in the original? Well, look, we got it here too.
So they're just really playing instead of just acknowledging the original. They're like, no, exactly. They're painting by numbers. Seemingly, the trailer is.
In the music, the use of the more modern day music in the
Yeah.
end just ruined
Blood
it for
on the
me.
floor or whatever. Yeah, just not working. They're
Nothing
just-
against the music. It's,
No,
just,
it's
it's
just-
not a fit for this. That's not the style of film that I think this needs to be marketed as.
And
So,
I just, to me, Now, granted, it's the trailer. The trailer makes it look like studios like, we want a sequel to this movie. It did really well. Okay, let's throw a bunch of money at it, and maybe everybody signed on. It just like, yeah, okay, and we'll just kind of sleepwalk through this, and it'll be great because it just looks like it's just very formulaic. Not, I don't know. Yeah, I worry.
I do not think the
because
trailer's
the trailer.
good. Yeah,
the trailer's just
no, and it does. It gives away too much. And look, I think Paul Mescal looks good.
Sure.
I think he's probably up for the role. He seemed to be pretty. Yeah, I could see where he's going with the performance already in this trailer. I'm okay with that. I know we were both eye rolling a little bit with the pasty faced kind of. I guess the Emperor. You know, there's two of them in this film. There's like twins.
Okay.
One of them being played by, he was in the Quiet Place, the new Quiet Place movie.
Oh, it's the guy from Stranger Things.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Is it? Oh, what is his name?
I can't remember. I know he played the rock and roller Eddie in Stranger Things.
Yes, he did.
Right.
That is Joseph Quinn.
There we go.
So, and I like him.
Yeah, I like him.
So I know they're obviously trying to outdo the Joaquin Phoenix character and like let's make even one more outlandish and all. So again, it just felt like it was like paint by numbers. Yep, this is what we got to do. Oh, we got a Coliseum fights. Oh, how do we make the Coliseum fights even more extravagant? Oh, we'll do a water scene inside the Coliseum. It's like everything's just, let's take what we did in the original and let's just raise it up. Same. That's what the trailer gave off. Now, I hope I'm wrong. Right. I hope this is better than what I saw, but that's what
and it looks expensive. So there's that. But yeah, I worry. Well, I'll probably end up seeing it. Yeah, because it's going to be a big release, and so we'll probably
absolutely be seeing it. Just
and hopefully, there again, this is actually kind of a good thing. Hopefully, the trailer has lowered my expectations so much that when I go see it, I'll be like, oh, you know.
The biggest thing with that made Gladiator work is there was true emotion in that film. Okay, that's the thing, is it elevated it above just a swashbuckling action movie. I felt like, and Russell Crowe, I got to give a lot of credit to that. I mean, he nailed that role and he was so good in that movie. And between his performance, the score, the whole setup of the story, it was great. This is going to have to really work hard to try to match that in any way, shape, or form. So
I think this is going to be petty, but hey, at this stage of my movie-going life, I really want more of a sequel than just throwing a number on there.
Yeah.
To me, now granted, haven't seen the movie, like you said, this is just the trailer. But it's like the amount of effort you put into something, if you can't come up with something more imaginative than just tacking a number on there, that worries me because it's like, really? Even if you want to do Gladiator 2 something, that to me at least says like we're trying, but just Gladiator 2, that just seems, I mean, at least it is a little imaginative where it has the Roman numerals instead of just having the big 2.
Yeah.
But I mean, I need more. It's petty, I know. But
well, right now my fear is that, like you said, it's just retreading the original with new faces and some even heightened situations. That's not enough. So agreed. Okay, let me play another trailer for you. These two trailers are ones that, Chris, I would say I'm bringing to the table because I have been excited about these films.
Okay.
I'm not banking on maybe as much, but maybe I can change your mind. Who knows? We have been a little bit in a drought on the Marvel Cinematic Universe as of late.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, really, there's been nothing. What was the last film that came out that they did?
Well, and Madam Web was not considered to be
that was
that,
not an MCU movie.
Right.
Was it Guardians of the Galaxy?
Volume 3? I think
Maybe so.
Yeah.
Maybe so. And that was about a year ago.
Right.
Yeah. I'll have to look that up. We'll get our intern on that right away.
Sure.
Anyway, it's been a while.
Yeah.
And we have Deadpool Wolverine coming up in a couple weeks. And then nothing else for the rest of the year. But we do have a film coming out. And that is the new Captain America movie.
Okay,
Brave New World.
I haven't seen the trailer for this either.
There we go. See,
awesome.
I am on top of it today and surprising you.
And I'll briefly, I don't know if we mentioned on any other show, the Wolverine Deadpool movie. I am actually kind of
too.
excited for.
I am too. I got to admit, that's the only movie coming out in the next few months that I can honestly say I'm anticipating.
And, here again, danger of trailers. The trailers are what have made me excited, and I've seen them a lot. Hopefully they don't show every joke in the movie.
Well, hopefully they don't show every joke, and hopefully there's something surprising in these films,
Right.
because that's the thing. There's got to be. Yeah, there's got to be something of interest in these films, in that film. So we'll see. But this will be the one that comes after that film.
Got you.
Okay. This is also the first one where we have Anthony Mackie playing Sam Wilson in a title role as Captain America in the movie.
Okay, and this it's called
It's Captain America: Brave New World.
Okay, see, there's an example of you're not just putting a
It's
number.
not Captain America 4. It is Captain America: Brave New World, because this would technically be the fourth one
Got you.
with the Captain America name.
Okay.
So why don't we take a look at the trailer for Captain America: Brave New World, and then any questions you have about characters mentioned or plot devices, I'm here to answer those for you.
You're the
Okay.
researcher for
There we go.
Marvel movies.
Perfect.
Yes.
This is coming out February 14th of 2025.
Oh, Valentine's Day.
Yeah, perfect thing to take your sweetheart out to.
Wilson. Thanks for coming in.
Well, thank you for the invite, sir. I have to admit, I'm still getting used to the new look.
They said lose the mustache or lose the election. You and I haven't always agreed in the past, but I want to make another run at making Captain America an official military position.
And if we disagree on how to manage this situation, then what happens?
Work with me, Sam. We'll show the world a better way forward.
Okay. So that was the trailer for Captain America: Brave New World. Harrison Ford taking on the role that had been for William Hurt, who is it William Hurt? Yeah, who passed
so.
away.
Right.
Playing Thunderbolt Ross. The joke made at the beginning is that he doesn't have the mustache anymore, which is
Right.
kind of joking that there's a new actor
New
playing
actor,
him.
yeah.
So what's your thoughts, Chris? What
Kind of surprised that this, just seeing the trailer, it looks very political, which Disney delving into that. I mean, I guess the other Captain America movies have dealt with governments and...
Well, the second one, The Winter Soldier,
Right.
it's kind of considered by a lot of people like the best Marvel movie. I mean, I think it's really good.
It is really good.
And it was definitely had that more political undertone to it. I mean, actually, all three of the Captain America movies have dealt with that.
Because Civil War was about factions.
Yeah, and it was
fighting,
like
so-
all the government regulations
Right.
on things that they're, yeah.
But I guess considering the political climate that our country is currently in, and we're about to have an election, or we will in November, interesting that this is kind of like, it seems like a Disney Civil War, because Civil War came out and that was the A24 film that we reviewed here on the show. And, so kind of surprised, but I guess that's, the comics, I guess, follow this, has some grounding in backstory of him becoming the new Captain America. And there's a little bit of a tease of what I assume to be a villain towards the end of the film. But I don't know. And I don't want to give it away if people haven't seen the trailer yet. But, yeah, so I'm interested. I'm curious. It looks unlike Gladiator 2 Electric Boogaloo. Captain America Brave New World, not only does it have a title instead of just tacking a number there, but it looks to be a little bit more substantive. So
I'm excited.
Okay.
I think it looks good. I love the political intrigue side of these stories, when I feel like the stories might be a little more grounded than maybe some other Marvel movies have been. Possibly. And again, this movie could still go off into wild directions, but
Sure.
I like it when they're feel a little more real, feel a little more grounded. And there's definitely elements of that here.
Right.
No, I'm really looking forward to it. I hope it's good. I hope between Deadpool, Wolverine giving us a very outlandish kind of, but fun, interesting, funny film. And then 6 months later we get this that seems to be a little bit more
yeah, you talk
serious-minded,
about a
and
contrast
grounded.
in trailers.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's what I want.
Yeah,
I
sure.
think give me that. I just don't want everything to be cookie cutter. And I feel like this looks good. So I'm very optimistic on this.
And the trailer too, which is not something I generally associate with Marvel movies, or Disney movies. Very intense.
Yeah, it was.
The trailer was very intense. So
now I will say to your comment about the fact that it's kind of got a little bit of a geopolitical slant to it, and it's interesting timing to be doing that. My understanding is this film has gone through several revisions and reshoots. The theories are that maybe it is because of some of those political climate messages and themes. So I think there's a character in the film that belongs to the Israeli national side of things. Yep.
Oh, wow.
So again, I think there's been some adjustments and some having to redo some things to make sure the right messaging is out there with it. So yeah, that could be part of it as well.
Wow.
Yeah, so we'll certainly see with that. No, I'm intrigued. I'm excited. I hope this is Marvel returning to like really focusing on the quality of every one of their products instead of the quantity of trying to push out. And maybe this is a good start. So we'll see. Okay, Chris, I'm done with news. So we are saying that the new Aronofsky film, intriguing. Gladiator 2, maybe not intriguing yet. We'll have to wait and see with the film.
Sure.
Captain America: Brave New World has potential and could be an interesting watch. So we got plenty to watch out for in the coming months for sure. So Chris, I'm going to kick it over to you now. It is time for the patented Chris Fry recommendation of the episode. From time to time, Chris likes to recommend something to us that he caught up with recently. And I think I know what your recommendation is, so I will be eager to chime in on this a little bit as well.
Yes.
But I'm going to let you take it away. What can you tell us about your recommendation for this week?
This is definitely a dual recommendation. I did, talk with Alan off air that I was 99% positive that I was going to recommend this film because I caught up with it recently. I had seen it in the theater back when it came out in 1991, but had not revisited it since. And then prior to seeing Longlegs, I was like, you know what? I want to watch this film again. And I did. I'm talking about The Silence of the Lambs, the film directed by Jonathan Demme that stars Jodie Foster and Anthony Hopkins. I remember seeing it in the theater. I was 17, which at the time in North Carolina, that meant you could go see a rated R movie for the first time. So I did. And I'm pretty sure I think this was the first rated R movie that I'd ever seen.
Oh, wow.
And man, you talk about an impression. I mean, yes, it scared the bejesus out of me. And the infrared goggle scene towards the end, it's just, and when I watched it this time, still like intense, but at least I knew what was going to happen. But man, just so well put together. And unfortunately, because I'd seen it in the marketing for long, it's not a fair comparison because you talk about budgets, you talk about stars involved and everything. And the writing, this was based on a book. But Silence of the Lambs, great film. If you haven't seen it in a while, I strongly recommend revisiting it. It's worth all the attention that we got. Anthony Hopkins, obviously the guy's done several roles. He's been great in several films, but man, he is just amazing in this. Also something I didn't pick up on in 91 because nobody knew or was aware of really the phrase, the Me Too movement and all that thing. But the treatment of Clarice Starling, Jodie Foster's character, and how all the men, or lots of the men in the movie, are looking down at her or being, sexually inappropriate towards her. And it's interesting, the commentary of having Anthony Hopkins, who is a serial killer and is not right, but he is the one person that seems to respect her. Yeah. So that's really interesting that it takes somebody like that, really kind of twisted. Her boss, played by, I think it's Scott Glenn, who plays her boss. Jack Crawford. He just has this just doesn't have a very good sense towards her, kind of a creeper being the boss and using her, dangling her in front and acknowledging that and it just doesn't feel right. And I didn't really pick up on that when I was 17, when I saw it back in the day, but now it's just very, still very resonant, and just how well the pacing of the film, just highly recommend. So,
No,
Alan,
look,
Silence of
Silence of the
Lambs.
Lambs is one of my favorite movies of all time.
Okay.
You and I talked about it just a few days ago in preparation for getting ready to go see Longlegs. Part of the reason I did want to go see Longlegs was because I'm looking for another Silence of the Lambs or something in that vein.
Sure.
Was let down by that. But I ended up watching Silence of the Lambs again myself too, because we started talking about it. And I'm like, I want to see this movie again. I do love this movie. I think everything you just mentioned, you're right on with it. I also just got to credit Jonathan Demme for the way he directed this film. I mean, the use of straight on face shots of people's faces, addressing the camera, talking to the dialogue, just got you so wrapped up in this, in every scene of dialogue and every encounter. And then the pacing of the film, you're right. I'd forgotten. I mean, I've seen this film many, many times, but I keep forgetting that, Lecter disappears. He's not even around for the whole last 30 minutes, the big finale. So it's like, it's not really his film in the end, which is fine. I think it actually adds this interesting element. And I'd forgotten too, that all the way the director did the misdirection with some different scenes and leading you to believe one thing and changing
There's
it up.
some twists or some surprises. You think you're understanding what's going on.
Which nowadays you may feel like a kind of trope, like they do those a lot. But back at the time, I remember sitting in the theater watching this first time, like generally shocked.
Right.
And here again, I use my son, Nick, my youngest, as a guidepost on a lot of these. I know I brought him up already a couple times in this episode, but he's home for the summer, getting ready to go to film school in another month or so. So he is catching up with me on some of these films. So he watched it for the first time with me.
Okay.
He did like it, but he was honestly surprised and shocked at some of the twists, which is great because I think we've kind of built a film culture where you expect these things, you expect these twists.
Sure.
The fact that they still pulled it off and it was generally as riveting as it was, and building up the sense of dread and tension and different scenes. I mean, it's just really, really well done. Yeah. The only criticism I had from the younger audience watching the film, a little bit of what you were commenting on, the whole treatment of Clarice by the police and everybody around her or fellow colleagues. They felt like the younger people watching it with me said, I get it. And I understand that's an issue, but they felt like the film was maybe a little ham-fisted with it.
Well, and I think seeing it now for somebody, like if you didn't tell anybody when this was made, if you just said here's this film I want you to watch, and they'd be like, okay, I get it, but man, they were hitting that kind of. But back when this was made in '91,
it's true. It was a fairly
I
new
can
concept,
see why I can totally see why they would say that.
Yeah,
but in '91,
at the '91, it was definitely kind of a hotbed topic.
Yeah,
that was just really starting to build a lot of momentum around it.
Sure.
And I think the film is great for what it communicates with it. Does it do it a little bit with a blunt instrument? Yeah, it does. But at the time it was released, it worked. Now it may seem a little over the top, but it doesn't bother me. I still think it's really solid and good. So, yeah. And Jodie Foster, that's the thing. Is that
she's great too.
We talk about Micah Monroe and Longlegs, and it's like, I just saw Jodie Foster play this role 48 hours earlier.
I know, FBI agent.
Sorry,
It's tough.
It just doesn't work.
It's a tough sell.
Jodie Foster's role is perfection in this, and the way she plays it.
It's true.
So, yeah.
Obviously this film's rentable probably pretty much anywhere. Oh, yeah. It is streaming Amazon Prime, so if you have an account on that, you can watch it for free.
Yeah. So. Silence of the Lambs. That's a good one to recommend, Mr. Fry. So appreciate that. All right. Well, that wraps us up for today. So we had our review of the horror film Longlegs. We talked about Gladiator 2. We talked about Captain America 4. We talked about Caught Stealing 1. I mean, it's the first. I guess there's not going to be a sequel to that.
Sure. I'm going to dignify the Captain America film by saying Brave New World. It's not just Captain America 4.
Good for you.
Give it fair due.
Proper credit. All right. You're right. And then our Chris's recommendation of Silence of the Lambs. So, Chris, any parting news or messages or explanations we want to give to anybody on what they can do going forward?
Yes. So to contact us, you can send us an email to info@footcandle.org. You can also follow us on Twitter @FootCandleFilm. We're on Facebook, simply Foot Candle Film Society. Instagram and Threads, we're Foot Candle Film. Al and I are also on Letterboxd, where we try to track what we're seeing and leave quick takes. Do us a favor. If you like the show, consider giving us a star rating, write a review, share with friends or whatever service you receive your podcast from, because it'll help us reach new listeners, and we'd always appreciate that. Last but not least, we mentioned it before at the top of the show, but the 2024 Foot Candle Film Festival will be happening September 20th through the 29th. So if you're going to be in Western North Carolina during that time frame, we'd love to have you stop in and catch some films with us. It's going to be our 10th annual film festival, so we are excited because it's going to be a good one. And we will be releasing, I keep saying this every show, but by the time the next episode is released, we should have released the lineup.
Yes,
so
that is the plan.
Be checking out for that or looking out for that.
Yeah, check online. footcandlefilmfestival.com is the website. Also, just kind of stay tuned to this podcast. We'll be talking about it more in the next couple weeks as well. All right. Well, that wraps us up for today. Thanks, everybody, for listening, and we'll look forward to talking to you next time. Take care.
See you in the ticket line.
Watch films in the company of like-minded people in the dark. Watch films in the underground. We won't let anyone know where you are. The films that don't make it to Carmike at the mall, or ones that were famous when Grandpa would watch films out of the reverence of the heritage of an art. Watch films through the courtesy of Foot Candle Film Society.
Special thanks to Carpal Tuller for the show theme music. For more about Carpal Tuller, visit www.carpaltuller.com. You've been listening to The Mesh, an online media network of shows and programs ranging from business to arts, sports to entertainment, music to community. All programs are available on the website as well as through iTunes and YouTube. Check us out online at themesh.tv. Discover other network shows and give us feedback on what you just heard.